Hey everybody, Jeff here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about that incredible $1 billion plus settlement that just got approved by the judge Saturday, 2 days ago here on Memorial Day weekend. The settlement was filed on Friday, and we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you who ended up paying what and how much to the unit owners and their families and survivors and all that. How much do they stand to get from all of this? So in this class action lawsuit that was filed for the Champlain Towers South, the plaintiffs are divided into four basic categories here. So you have liability class over here, and you have personal injury and wrongful death subclass. You have non-owner personal injury and wrongful death. And then the last one is economic loss and property damage subclass. So in the lawsuit, you have the plaintiffs that name a whole bunch of defendants. They went after anybody and everybody, anybody with an insurance policy or any other means of squeezing money out of them, and that's how you do it in these types of cases. And you try to spread the blame around to everybody, just make everybody either settle up or take them to court and win the case against them. So what I've done here is I've broken it up into the defendants that are related to the Champlain Towers. So here you have the Champlain Towers South Homeowners Association. They're being sued by everybody for, lack of maintenance, not making these repairs in time, a whole bunch of other reasons. And then the other one here is Morabito Consultants. So he's the structural engineer that was hired by the Homeowners Association in 2018 to handle their 40-year recertification. He's the one that issued that famous report in 2018 that said you need to get these repairs done immediately or the concrete will deteriorate at an exponential rate. Therefore, the Champlain Towers South plaintiffs are arguing that, well, he didn't do enough to warn people. There was a whole bunch of, they throw around words like negligence and unethical work, you just try to come up with all sorts of ways to discredit the person, basically. And then the third one here is Becker and Poliakoff, huge law firm. They were the lawyers for the Champlain Towers South Condominium Association. They got sued for the same type of thing, basically not doing enough to protect the homeowners and a whole bunch of other things. The remaining defendants named in the lawsuit here are from next door here at the 87 Park Condo. Now, this gets a little bit more complex because, see, you have this group here called Terra. So Terra Group is essentially the developers, and then Terra World Investments, and then 87 Collins Development. That's, I believe that's the shell company. A lot of times, developers will set up a shell company to develop the actual project. So here they're referred to as the Terra Defendants. And then you have Stantec as the architect of record. John Moriarty and Associates here is the general contractor. Disimone is the structural engineer of record. And then NV5 over here is the geotechnical engineer brought in. They're the guys that come over here and they look at all the land and see if it's safe to build on, what's the deal with the water underneath, and how are we going to affect buildings next to us. So these guys, NV5, likely brought in Geosonics to come in and do the vibration monitoring of the sheet piles, which was one of the core parts of the lawsuit, as the Champlain South owners were claiming that when they were driving in those sheet piles, and we'll show you later in the lawsuit, how it caused a lot of excess vibration beyond the limits as measured by Geosonics. Then we have also Florida Civil. This is the company that comes in and does the dewatering, and also the 8701 Condo Association. So this is all of the defendants between this here and right here in CTS. All of these are the defendants that were named in the lawsuit. However, you're going to see a boatload more of defendants that came out, and some might even come out in the future, we don't know, but that came out after the lawsuit that weren't named in it, and these are called non-defendant parties that you're going to see coming up. Okay, so the lawsuit was filed in November, and as early as even February and March, we had all of these defendants here were pointing fingers at each other. It's funny how everybody's all buddy-buddy until it hits the fan and there's a lawsuit. Next thing you know, they're all pointing fingers at each other. No, it was him. No, it was him. No, it was this guy. No, it was this guy. This guy's bad. He did this. He did that. They were in the middle of doing that when all of a sudden, bam! What do you think happened on February 10th? The Champlain Towers Homeowners Association decides they want to settle. They came up with was $83 million, and that sounds like a pretty good amount, man. I mean, right off the bat, without even having to go to court. $50 million of that is coming from the insurance that they had on the building. The other $33 million, I believe it's coming from their percentage of the proceeds of the ownership when they sell the $120 million sale of the property. If you divide that out amongst the 136 units, that leaves $610,294 per condo unit. And you might say, hey, that sounds pretty decent. That's a good amount to settle for. But this was met immediately by objections by numerous owners who were saying, no way, we're being lowballed. We don't like this, and we're not going to accept this. And, some people, like, for example, so you remember Maria Ileana Monteagudo, who moved into her unit just a few months before the collapse. She paid $700,000 for her unit. So this won't even cover her losses, let alone all of her personal belongings and valuables and stuff like that. What people did not realize here, folks, if you look at this is the first of many shoes that are likely to drop. I think they should have said, yeah, it's not like you're signing all the rest of your rights away. I think some of them might have been confused about that. I don't know. But there's more to come. That's just from this right here. Okay, so now, March 8th, bam, we got another settlement coming up. We got 3 defendants agree to settle here. And here, Morabito Consultants comes up with $16 million. So this is all of their insurers that are doing this, by the way, their insurance companies. And none of these guys are going to admit any guilt. So that's usually what happens in a settlement. There's no admission of guilt or anything, and you can't sue them afterwards. You take the money, you walk away, everybody walks away, shake hands. Becker and Polyakov, they must have had a boatloads of insurance, man, because they coughed up $31 million. So that pretty much takes care of all of the Champlain Tower South defendants now. Disimone, from the other side of the street there, 87 Park Condo, they decided they wanted to get in on the action too and settle for $8,550,000. So now there's your total from these 3 guys is $55,550,000. So now suddenly things are starting to look a little bright, because add it to the previous settlement from February 10th, and here's the one from March 8th. Now you're at $138 million. Now we're up to $1 million per unit. This would handle all of the people, the survivors who maybe they weren't injured, but they lost their property, they lost their car, and they lost all their personal belongings. Sweeten things a little for them. But you know what? I'm thinking there's still got to be more. Well, there is more. You heard about 2 weeks ago, somewhere around May 11th or May 12th, they announced close to $1 billion in settlement. Well, that's actually increased thanks to some non-party defendants that I'm going to show you here in a second. So actually, just this past Friday, on the 28th, I believe it was, some settlement was reached, and the judge approved it on Saturday, over the weekend even. So let me show you what went on here. I'm going to put us in full screen mode. This is a spreadsheet I made. And man, I hope you folks appreciate my hard work on this one, because I busted tail on this going into that settlement agreement, 181 pages, and extracting out all of these defendants and companies and corporations, and went and looked up their logos online and everything and hooked them up so you could see who is who here. And I prettied up the names for them so that you could tell who they were, because a lot of them were just mentioned by 3-letter acronym. Here's that $31 million from Becker and Polyakov. You got $16 million from Morabito, which I just showed you. And this was an interesting turn of events here. Nobody saw this one coming. The town of Surfside had a special meeting, a very rare meeting that they never do in the daytime, in the morning, a couple of Tuesdays ago, I think it was. And they decided to just give $2 million to the fund. And so they are what we call a non-defendant settling party. And they were even named in the settlement form, because all of the money that's given has to go to the receiver for the property, who was nominated by the judge in this case. I don't know if there's going to be any more. I don't know if that wipes their hands of it or what. This is the most puzzling one of all. So Securitas was the Champlain Tower South security company through their insurance companies, and they have boatloads of insurance. They're forking over $517 million. This is not a misprint, not a typo. I did not fat finger that number, folks. $500 million just for the one security guard that was there on site. And you know what? Personally, I don't even know or what she would have done wrong, or I can't think of anything she did wrong. She did her job as far as I can tell, and then some. When Sarah Nur came down to the lobby and told her to call 911, was one of the very first 911 calls to come in before the building collapsed about 5 minutes later. And so I don't know why they would have named Securitas as a non-defendant settlement. They weren't even named in the lawsuit, so I don't even know why they came forward and why they produced this much money, but God bless them, man. Hey, we'll take it, right? Why would you even settle, even if you think you're going to get sued later? Why would you settle with that high amount that was far and above, by many multiples, what the allegedly guilty parties settled for? That's just mind-blowing. That is the most mind-blowing settlement I've ever heard of in my life. That should help a lot of people now. So doing this, of course, they don't admit any guilt. But, I thought she was a hero, the security guard, because as soon as she made the call, like a minute or two later, the building collapses, and she goes down to the pool deck and she rescues Maria Ileana Monteagudo, and we showed it on that
Are you okay? What? Are you okay? Is anybody down there injured? What's wrong with her?
Just logging in. Just logging in. Surfside, Survival, honey.
Give me a second, I'm gonna go around.
Video that I did back in August on the police body cam, and I showed you the freeze frame of where we first identified her, found her down in the rubble pile pulling people out. Don't know why in the world they paid that kind of money. Okay, next is the 87 Park Association, $29 million. Bitsy and Partners Development, I believe these are the people that originally found the old Howard Johnson's hotel, came up with this project for the 87 Park next door. So they, through their insurance, came up with $16 million. This is the Shell company, the Shell Corporation. So they came up with $28 million. There's Disimone, as we mentioned earlier. CCIP insurers came up with $84 million. That's massive. What these guys are, this is the representative list of all the insurance companies and stuff representing all of the contractors that did any work on 87 Park. So they came up with a good boatload of money. John Moriarty and Associates, holy cow, they must have had some huge amount of insurance because they came up with a whopper of $157 million there. NV5 Engineering, $25 million. The architects, Stantec, came up with $8.5 million. Florida Civil, $6.9 million. Well, all the rest are somewhat smaller. Oh, come on, man. Chuck's backhoe? No way. They went after Chuck, man. I can't believe they went after Chuck. Chuck, man. I can't believe they went after Chuck. What did Chuck do? What did poor little Chuck do? Anyway, I don't know who Chuck is or what they did. I guess they rent the backhoes and stuff and they dig trenches. But hey, in lawsuits like this, man, you go after anybody and everybody. Any place you can find a few dollars, you go and you squeeze that rock dry, man. ASAP Installations, I think these are the guys that actually did the pounding of the sheet piles, which ironically only paid $250,000. And they didn't get sued either. So I'm surprised that this company was not part of the original lawsuit. HVA, I have no idea who they are. Rhett Roy is the landscape architect for the building next door. He had $1 million of coverage. Concrete Protection and Restoration. This was a CTS contractor. I believe these are probably one of the companies that did concrete restoration out of the who knows how many times they've had stuff done there on that property before it collapsed. But they came up with $11 million. Wilcott Engineering is another one. So all of these that you see with the CTS and the parentheses, all of these were subcontractors used by Champlain Towers over the last few years. Okay. And you can see the various amounts, $9 million, $4 million, $3 million, and also Tannenbaum Harbor Insurance. Now, I don't know specifically what Tannenbaum was insuring on Champlain Tower South. $7 million there. And don't forget now, the sale of the property, that's not included in this settlement. That's going to come later. The sale of the property of this empty site to the Dubai developer Hossein, and I hope I got his name right, Sajwani. He's the founder of Damac, who's a massive developer over there in Dubai. So he's going to buy the property for $120 million. They did put it up for auction last week on the 24th of May. And believe it or not, even though they had a lot of interest from a lot of companies, there was no other bidders because nobody wanted to touch this offer. Apparently it was too rich for their blood. Okay, and so as I've added everything up in my spreadsheet, if I'm correct, that leaves us with a bottom line, folks, of $1.124 billion with a B, not a misprint. I did not fat finger or add an extra digit. That is what we have right there. That's where we're at now. What I don't know is, could there be more defendants coming in? Could some fall out? You know, we don't know. One that I'm really happy about here, even though I don't think they did anything wrong. See these guys right here, Geosonics? They're the guys that did the sound testing, and they're the ones that showed in the lawsuit. They used their data in the lawsuit to show that when they were building the 87 Park next door, they violated multiple times the amount of vibration that was allowed. I don't know why these guys got sued, but I guess again, they're claiming, well, you didn't do enough to stop the construction or do this or do that or do the other. And I'm like, you know, a lot of these accusations that they're lobbing out, some of them are going to be really hard to prove. So that's why I'm glad they settled. Okay, so now with this new settlement amount, provided that all of this goes through, you're looking at now $8.269 million per unit for each of those 136 units. But remember, this can all get eroded away by lawyers' fees. You know how greedy those lawyers are sometimes. That's going to erode quite a bit of money. We don't know how much, but certainly it's going to erode some, at least a noticeable chunk. And like I said, I'm hoping there's more settlements that come later on as well. So here we are right here on the Florida Senate's website, and I'm reading this statute here. This is 718.119, which covers limitation of liability. Now, here's where it gets hairy for the homeowners if they decide to continue to sue. And what can happen here is the owner of a unit may be personally liable for the acts or omissions of the association in relation to the use of these common elements, but only to the extent of his pro rata share. So that means it would be divided amongst all of the homeowners there. But what if you're only a few that did not settle, and then you're stuck paying for that liability later on? That could be a major problem here. We already know that the damages that are being sought greatly surpass the amount of insurance that the homeowners association has. So it says right here, in any legal action in which the association may be exposed to liability and excessive insurance coverage protecting it and the unit owners, they shall give notice of the exposure within a reasonable time. So that way the owners can maybe come in and try to intervene and defend, but you can see the potential for great loss for some of these people that want to stick it out and hold out for more. Now, in addition to this, they've given until July 18th for you to back out. If you were one of the owners or anybody that could have been in the possible settlement class here, you have until July 18th to opt out of this. And if you don't, I think that means you're automatically sucked into it. But if you were thinking of opting out of this and continuing on with the lawsuit, now I realize some people are really upset by this whole thing and they want to see justice. They want to see, these people's names dragged through the mud. They want to see them shown guilty in courts and all that. But how much is that really going to buy you? At what cost is it worth? And a lot of times these types of litigations, because they're all vehemently denying that they had any type of liability here, these can drag on 5 to 10 years. Do you really want to spend the next 10 years doing this? You could die broke. And remember, the longer these things go on, man, and these lawyers are costing $300, $400, $500 an hour, right? Who do you think is going to get all the money when this is done? It always goes to the lawyers. They always get a major chunk out of these settlements. So, yeah, a lot of times you don't get good settlements. In this case, this is a great settlement right out of the bat. The Judge Michael HanZman was ecstatic about this settlement because he wanted to get this done and out of the way and settled by June 24th, which is the 1-year anniversary of the condominium collapse. So to be able to get a settlement that big, over $1 billion this soon, is just incredible. It really is like winning the lottery. Well, we still have a lot of research to go, and we're still working on several other videos for you, so stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed, and thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll see you on the next one.